In 1998, scientists measured the greatest El Niño of all time. The event affected temperature readings around the globe and made that year one of the warmest ever. It's become the basis for one of the most enduring of all climate denial croaks, that global warming stopped in 1998. To get a clearer picture of where global temperature measurements are today, let's look at the instrumental record. This graph from the National Aeronautic and Space Administration shows the record of reliable scientific measurements going back to 1880 and shows an obvious warming trend throughout that period. The denialists would like you to ignore 90% of this picture and concentrate here, in the last decade or two. When we look at NASA's data for recent years, what we see is that 1998, boosted by the giant El Niño, is tied for the second warmest year on record. 7 years later, without any help from an El Niño, 2005 became the warmest ever. 2007, with a moderate El Niño which made a very warm winter, is tied with 1998. 2008, which would have been a record-shattering year 2 decades ago, was relatively cooler than the previous years, in large part because, instead of an El Niño event, since 2007 the Pacific has been in a cool phase, the phase we call La Niña. La Niña events have the opposite effect from an El Niño on global temperatures. Deniers like to graph from the peak El Niño year of 98 to the La Niña year of 2008 and say, there you see, global warming stopped in 1998. Graph over several decades, we can see why. Deniers would like us to look at the last decade or so and draw a flat, unchanging line. But depending on where we start our line and how long we make it, we can show just about any effect we want. For instance, take a 7-year line from the early to mid-80s and you can show a cooling. Does that mean global warming stopped in 1980? You can show the same thing if you start a 7-year line in the late 80s to early 90s.